Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are unpacking what is essentially a highly strategic map that can completely bulletproof your product's success. We're talking about the software benchmark analysis. If you're tired of just relying on gut instinct to make big product decisions, well, you're going to get a ton of value out of this blueprint.
But first, I have a pretty serious question for you. Are you building in a vacuum? Seriously, think about it. There is a massive danger in launching a product blindly, just relying on your own intuition and hoping the market responds well. Today, we're introducing a concept that basically acts like a market X-ray. It lets you see right through all your competitors' shiny marketing spin, so you know exactly what you're actually up against.
Okay, let's dive into this. At its core, a benchmark analysis is just a highly structured comparison. You're taking your product or your planned project and you're lining it right up against similar, existing solutions that are already out there in the wild. Now, the goal here isn't just to copy what everyone else is doing, not at all. The goal is to figure out your gaps, find your true differentiators, and, perhaps most importantly, justify your design choices using cold, hard evidence.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover why you need benchmarks, the anatomy of the matrix, a real-world antivirus teardown, how to build your own, and finally the best practices to make it successful.
All right, moving into Section 1, why you need benchmarks. Moving from guesswork to evidence-based strategy.
Listen, this analysis is way more than just some dry, boring spreadsheet. It's actually the living compass for your entire project. It is literally the ultimate solution to the pain of building blindly. Doing this helps you deeply understand exactly what features comparable companies are already offering, and it puts a giant spotlight on your own strengths and weaknesses. Plus, it acts as the absolute backbone for how you prioritize and position your product. When stakeholders inevitably ask, hey, why are we building this specific thing? You actually have the evidence to justify your scope. Now, you typically do this early in the discovery phase, but the best teams, they revisit it continuously, because, as we all know, the market never stops evolving.
Let's move to Section 2. Anatomy of the matrix, the math of the competitive landscape.
Now, what's really interesting about this setup is the positioning. A benchmark chart is usually organized as a matrix, where your columns represent the products you're comparing. But here is the major strategic advantage. You always place your own project in the very last column. This anchors your analysis. It makes it incredibly easy to reference your own capabilities against the rest of the field in just a single glance.
So your columns are set. Horizontally, your rows represent the specific features or the capabilities that you're evaluating. And right where those rows and columns meet, you have your cells. These just contain simple yes or no indicators, a Y or an N. Keeping it binary like this creates an instantly readable map of the market that totally cuts through all the usual noise.
Okay, if there is one mathematical rule you take away from today, it has to be this: 2N. In your matrix, N represents the number of competitors you're benchmarking across the top. The golden rule here is that you need at least double that number, 2N, in the features you evaluate on the vertical axis. Your feature list just has to be broad enough to capture any meaningful differentiation. So, to put that into perspective, if you're looking at 5 competitors, you absolutely need at least 10 features to see the landscape clearly. When you're looking at this finished matrix, you aren't just reading raw data. You are hunting for strategic victories. Think about it. If most of your competitors have a Y and you have an N, well, that's a gap. You need to close that. Those are market table stakes. But if they all say N and you say Y, you've just uncovered a potential differentiator. And the holy grail? A row where everyone, including you, says N. That right there is either a massive, untapped market opportunity, or it's a solid sign that the feature genuinely isn't needed by anyone.
Let's jump into Section 3, the antivirus teardown, real-world stakes and business context.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the matrix theory works in a real, hyper-competitive software market. Looking at this antivirus example, check out the boot time scan row. Both Avast and Bitdefender say Y, but your project says N. Right there is your gap. But then, drop down to the firewall row. Bitdefender says N, and you say Y, giving you a really clear edge. Now pay attention to those bottom 2 rows. Notice we aren't just looking at standard functional features anymore. We are suddenly comparing the price model and the country of origin. So the crucial point is this: a truly great benchmark analysis blends functional criteria and business criteria. What a product actually does technically, that's really only half the story. How that product is positioned, how it's sold, and how it's regulated, that matters just as much, if not more, when you're actually out there trying to win market share.
So your matrix absolutely has to step beyond just feature parity. You need to dig into these broader business dimensions. Things like pricing policy. Is the market dominated by free tools, or are people used to paid subscriptions? Customer base size and market value will tell you who you're really up against. Are you fighting a scrappy, bootstrapped startup or a publicly traded behemoth? And country of origin is a huge one. It directly impacts data privacy and everyone's absolute favorite headache, GDPR compliance. These are the kinds of criteria that answer your high-level strategic questions.
All right, Section 4, Building Your Benchmark, the step-by-step assembly guide.
Let's get tactical. The first phase is pure, ruthless research. Step 1, define your scope and lock in those competitors. Step 2, build out that feature list, and remember to use that 2N rule. Also, this list has to cover features across all your competitors, not just the stuff you personally plan to build. Step 3, go collect your data. Read the official docs, download the free trials, check out public comparisons on sites like G2 or Capterra. Then, Step 4, start populating your matrix. Score it with a Y or N, and hey, it's okay to use a partial state if a strict binary yes or no is just too limiting for a specific feature.
Let's move on and see how this builds. Step 5 is where you layer in that crucial business context, the pricing, the scale, the origin. Step 6 is the actual analysis phase. This is where you roll up your sleeves and actively hunt for those gaps and differentiators we talked about earlier. Step 7 is arguably the most important. You have to summarize those findings into actionable insights for your stakeholders. The raw data doesn't speak for itself. You have to be the one to translate it. And finally, Step 8, revisit this whole thing periodically, maybe quarterly or annually, because trust me, your competitors are not just standing still.
Bringing us to our final section, Section 5, Best Practices for Success. Making your matrix clear and credible.
Okay, here's the final polish to make this thing look incredibly professional. Keep your feature list entirely objective and specific. You want to avoid vague criteria that are just impossible to score definitively. Always put your own project in that last column, like we covered. Definitely use color coding, green for yes, red for no. It seems simple, but it makes your matrix instantly readable if you're flashing it up during a presentation. Cite your sources so nobody can question your data's credibility. And listen to this one. If you genuinely cannot find a piece of data, just use a question mark. Never, ever guess. Total accuracy is the entire foundation of this exercise.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. Stop building in a vacuum. Look at whatever you're working on right now and ask yourself honestly, are you building a product the market actually needs or just the one you want to build? Stop guessing. Go build your matrix, confront the evidence, and start engineering your unfair advantage. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and we will see you next time.